You know, back in 2002, we had the big rodeo Chenesky fire, that great impact, huge impact on this entire region up here. And since then, it seems like the standard has always, that the rodeo fire is kind of like the standard.
Welcome to Shooting Straight with Brad and David. I'm Brad Carlyon, your Navajo County attorney, and unfortunately, Sheriff Klaus couldn't be with us this month, but instead we have...
I'm Brian Swanty. I'm the Chief Deputy for the Navajo County Sheriff's Office.
And our guest this month is Randy Chevalier, the Fire Chief with Timber Mesa Fire Department. Thanks for joining us, Randy.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brad, for having us on the show. It's really good to be here with you. I question being here with Chief Swanty, but I do love him.
If you guys don't know, we do have this little fun give and take between law enforcement and fire, and that may surface a little today, given that these guys go back 20 plus years.
All about brotherly love.
Yes, it goes way back. But before we get started, I want to make sure you have all the proper equipment, a junior deputy badge for the chief. So here you go,
thank
Chief.
you. I'm gonna put this in my office and frame it.
Right on.
That's excellent.
Right on.
Thanks.
We know you always wanted one of those.
I just recently got a picture with Sheriff Klaus wearing a badge, and he says he's my hero, and I really like the guy. It's worked out well.
And that went viral, from what I understand.
Perfect.
Right on.
Perfect.
Right
if
on.
a firefighter can make a county post viral, I'm in.
That's a win-win.
And how much do you guys have to pay for the boosting on social media?
Yeah, that gets a little pricey, holding up these firemen.
We can't get in the details. That's okay.
Randy, this time of year, everybody in the White Mountains is on pins and needles because it's fire season until the monsoons hit.
So true.
One of the things that I always look for is what kind of stage we're in and what's allowed and not allowed. What are stages, and who determines what stage we're in?
Oh, great question. Right now, we're not any type of fire restrictions. There is an awesome working group that determines fire restrictions for both Apache and Navajo County. Navajo County Emergency Management, Apache County Emergency Management, they pull together law enforcement, fire agencies, state agencies, the Forest Service, and the National Weather Service. And we sit down together. It's usually a Zoom type meeting, and we look at real projections from the National Weather Service about what's going on. What are the true conditions on the ground? And we talk about those conditions. And then we'll go into a bit of a voting session on how dry is it? How windy is it going to be? What are the outlooks going to look like moving forward? And should we be going any type of restrictions?
And you guys meet weekly, right?
We meet weekly.
Yeah.
We just began April 15th is when we just began meeting. And so we meet weekly. Chief Swanty or different representatives from the county are on the meeting, and we talk about those true conditions. And we want to base it off of science, not just my personal opinion, and try to take some emotion out of it. Because you're right, Brad, it is pins and needles. We've been impacted by fire, but we want to make true decisions based on science.
So there is science behind the decisions. Is there like a formula or something that is used, or is it a little bit of science, a little bit of history?
Yes.
How is that?
Yeah, so we have a form that we use, and it asks us a few questions. First and foremost, what's the weather going to do, right? When it's hotter and it's drier, I'm going to use really simple terms.
Thank you.
If the temperature's rising and the moisture's down, right? The humidity's down, that just makes things more susceptible to fire. So we bring in our partners from the National Weather Service, and they give us those indicators, right? They go through their whole predictability, and I can't get into the science of all those pieces, right? But they go through their whole predictability, and they tell us what the weather's going to look like for the next week or so. So we can look at that and go, all right, are the temperatures going up, and is the humidity going down? So that's going to have an effect on fuel moistures, fuel being the grass, the trees, or anything that can burn. And if it looks like it's going to be kind of a bad condition, that is one of the factors that we're going to take into consideration to go into restrictions.
One of the things I didn't really hear you mention much is wind.
That's right.
Oh, yes,
It
thank
always
you.
seems to be, when we do get fires, one of the bigger concerns that I hear, because it moves that fire along faster. Is that one of the factors also this group is looking at when evaluating what stages?
Absolutely. So wind conditions are a major pusher of, it's going to have the most influence on fire. Fire wants to rise, and you can put wind in a component to it, and it's just going to want to push it along a little faster. And so, yeah, what is the wind conditions? That's when we start talking about maybe red flag conditions, maybe start talking about other level of the 3 different restriction levels that we have.
You said red flag. What is that?
So red flag is when temperatures are going to be up, winds are going to be upwards of 25 miles per hour, and the relative humidity is going to be down, that 10% mark. That means it's hot, it's dry, and it's windy, and we need to raise that red flag to bring awareness to there's a potential for fire spread because of those factors.
Back in 2002, we had the big rodeo Chedeschi fire, that great impact, huge impact on this entire region up here. And since then, it seems like the standard has always, that the rodeo fire is kind of like the standard. Like, what were our conditions like in 2002 in June? How do we rate today in comparison, coming into this fire season as in comparison to going into the fire season of 2002? Do you have any data or a comparison that way? I
didn't bring any data to kind of support some of those pieces. 2002, obviously we were in severe drought, and that drought had been going on for multiple years. But there's a few factors that still exist and might not exist, right? One of those factors was a forest full of fuel, right? The heavy fuel component in the Apache Sitgraves, down on the White Mountain Apache tribe, there was just a continuous amount of fuel all uphill towards the rim, right? And then the prevailing wind out of the southwest, and that just created a bad situation for the rodeo Chedeschi. So some of that fuel doesn't necessarily exist, and we're not maybe in that same type of drought condition that we were. The last few years, the winters have been really nice, right? We've got a lot of snow. This year, maybe not so much, and so we're in a little bit of a moderate drought this year coming into this fire season, which is something we need to pay attention to. But some things we have going on, we see a lot of green grass, and that grass is called green up right now, which is a really good thing. So even though we're not in those maybe same drought conditions, is that green grass might get us a little bit complacent because the wind, the temperatures are going to dry out that grass, that fuel, and make it receptive to fire. So even though we might not see a rodeo Chedeschi type incident, which I would never rule that potential out, right? We still might see some significant fires that might be 50, 60 acres that could still cause quite a bit of devastation as it burns into homes, right?
Yeah, the closer it starts to residential areas, the greater risk.
The more risk we have.
One of the things you just mentioned is uphill conditions. I don't think most people realize that fire likes uphill more than downhill. Why is that?
Well, it's just the simple physics of fire, right? Heat wants to rise. You can put your hand above a candle and you can feel the heat coming off of that. And so when anything that fires down below a bluff or on a hillside, it is simply preheating that fuel above it, or maybe preheating that fuel in the what we call ladder fuels on a tree, those limbs that are coming up the ladder on the tree. It's going to preheat all those things, and so if it's preheating it, again, it's going to dry it out a little bit quicker and make it a little bit more receptive to fire. So fire wants to move uphill, and if it has topography, there's that uphill topography and wind direction with it, it's going to move faster. And it's actually one of our watch out from a wildland firefighting perspective. It's a watch out. Fire down below is a scary situation. There's been a number of firefighters killed with fire down below, constructing fire line above it, and that fire moving uphill fast and causing destruction.
And then also, if I remember right, there was an issue with canyons, where they'll get down in those canyons and the wind is different there than it would be outside or something like that, and just wicked going up.
All those upper level winds coming in off of a valley or off of a range, getting condensed into those canyons, and that wind speed is going to pick up, or maybe even as it enters it or exit it, it might start editing, changing the direction of those winds, which is very scary, and you don't want to be in those situations as a wildland firefighter.
So there's always things that are talked about in public service announcements and whatnot. Can you kind of go over some of those things that us as general citizens can do to avoid something like this in our neighborhood or on our property? How how we can prevent some of that from those neighborhood fires?
Absolutely. There's a number of simple things that we can do to help protect our community. And I, for one, I mean, this has been my home. We've lived here for forever, right? And we all grew up here, and we love and want to protect this place. And the fire department, the sheriff's office, the county, all the cities and towns, we need the citizens, the residents' help. We need the visitors' help. And there's really some simple pieces. First topic, of course, is FireWise, right? If anybody's interested in learning more about FireWise, reach out to any one of the fire districts or fire departments and we can talk more about it. You can go on to the NFPA website, NFPA FireWise, and it has a toolkit, all kinds of really neat stuff in there. But really what it boils down to is some really simple things. Mowing your yard, keeping those weeds knocked down. When a fire gets started, if you can eliminate those little simple ignition areas that want to carry fire, which is the grass, right? If we can eliminate those fuels, well, we're not going to have the movement of fire. Cleaning up your pine needles, raking your pine needles annually. There's several cool projects that exist out there. I know the city of Shoalo has the bulk pickup or the Queen's Sleep. There's several really neat projects out there. So if you need some assistance, they're providing those pathways to get rid of some of those materials.
What about for like our senior citizens that may not have the physical ability to rake all the pine needles in their yard?
Yeah, reach out to the fire departments, and we can put you into contact with either some really good vendors in the area, some private contractors that might be willing to come out and help. There's always some really good volunteer church groups or other groups out there that would come and volunteer to help clean up those pieces. Because you're right, there's some people that are capable and some people that just are not. And so I would suggest in that situation, if you're an abled individual living in that neighborhood and you're living next to an elderly couple, go help them out.
Yeah, lend a hand. Be a neighbor.
Simply picking up the pine needles, cleaning out the gutters, getting those pine needles out of areas. If we have that fire, an ember cast comes into that neighborhood, it wants to start on that leaf litter or that little grass or that seat cushion on your back porch. We forget about those sometimes. I know in my house, my wife has our back porch all decorated with a nice little rug out there, and it makes it feel nice when we're on the back porch. But it could catch on fire, and this one little ember can catch that deck on fire and then push up into your home. And so just taking some simple actions. Not only that, let's talk about towing trailers.
Oh my gosh,
we see these roadside fires all the time. Yeah. And a lot of times it's because we're dragging chains.
Right.
And so a simple thing, right? Secure your chains. Keep them up off the ground, crisscross them, put a couple twists into them, lock them down, make sure they're on hooks that can lock, right? Not just something that if you hit a bounce they can come off of, but those start so many fires.
Well, and even the things you have on your trailer, you know, if your tie-down strap comes loose and it's dragging along back behind, you know, just make sure everything's tightened up before you drive.
And then stop every once in a while and check it.
Right.
You know, and just double check your load and secure it again and just keep pushing through. Cigarette butts. Cigarette butts are, I heard a phrase a while back, keep your butts in your car. Keep your butts in your...
Keep your butts in the car or your ash will be in jail.
That's exactly
Something
right.
along that line.
Something along those lines. You know, I understand there's individuals that will still smoke, and that's their prerogative. But please keep them inside your car. This time of year, that roadside fire, that we've already been on multiple of them. We've been on several roadside fires
all winter
already. Right, it happens, and so put them out inside your car. Don't flick them out your window, please.
If somebody throws a cigarette butt out, regardless of whether it starts a fire, is that a crime?
Absolutely.
What if they start a fire? Does that change anything?
It just kind of depends on where the fire would be and what kind of an impact. If it starts burning, you know, people's property, then that elevates it upwards some. We also, if they start a fire due to recklessness like that or intentional during a red flag, that's even a greater charge.
Or those different stages that can come out.
Right.
I believe that the sheriff's office actually flies a plane looking for campfires when no campfires.
Yeah, we've got an aircraft, and the Forest Service helps us pay for some of those forest patrols during red flag or during fire season, and we'll fly in the evenings and stuff and look for fires what have you.
And if you see smoke that looks like it's from a campfire, do you send deputies out?
Yep. We'll send the closest deputy to the area and investigate it and take whatever appropriate enforcement action is necessary.
And does the sheriff's office and municipal police departments drive through neighborhoods and see if people are starting their bonfires in their backyard when they're not supposed to have one?
A lot of times we receive the call long before the officer out on patrol will find it, because people are so sensitive and vigilant to fire during that season. Just the regular communities, they'll call in and we'll actually dispatch officers or deputies or whoever to the incident.
Do you find that most people who your officers are responding to a fire at their house that they built will understand that they got to put it out, or do sometimes they get a little more confrontational? This is my property, I can do what the hell I want?
A lot of that right there is, this is my property, that doesn't apply to me, that's only out, in public use areas, and it takes a lot of education, and we've been talking about this for years and years, putting information out, but people still believe a lot of times, I can have this on my property, I'm responsible, but they don't really realize how dangerous that is. It's just like you talked earlier, one little ember that pops and goes to the neighbor's yard.
It catches the wind
Right.
and goes
Exactly.
across the fence and harms everybody else.
Right. Brad, I wanted to do one thing here, kind of wrapping up, but I wanted to talk about the incredible partnership that our emergency management, our communities, our non-governmental agencies, the fire agencies, law enforcement, public safety in general, the partnership that we have in this region. We've talked about this before, but it's incredible. It is far better than many other places around our state. I can't really speak for others.
And you've been in other counties and seen it.
Yeah, when I worked for the state, I've been in numerous other counties throughout Arizona, and the partnership that we have here, and it started back in '02. I would say back in '02 we didn't have that partnership, but
Agreed.
I think that major incident of the rodeo Chedes guy kind of brought that together, and him and I were not in leadership positions back then. He was probably dragging a hose, and I know I was pushing a patrol car, but we learned from that, and have been able to pass that knowledge along, and the importance of those partnerships along. And I just want to thank you and thank your agency and Pine Top Fire.
Absolutely.
And all the Pine Top, or all the fire districts in the region. We just have a phenomenal working relationship, to include all the law enforcement agencies. But with that, the firemen, they really love to tout the fact that they're the first responders. In reality, they're not. They're the second responders, in some cases the third responders. The responders that come first would be the law enforcement. We always have to go there and make sure everything's safe for the firemen to show up. So we do give them a hard time about that, but we do take great pride in providing protection for our lower heroes, if you will. But with that, I do have some things here that can help the chief, with his quest of wanting to be like the police. First, we all issue rifles to our deputies. So I wanted to present you with a rifle.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then
It ties
my
into the
badge.
firefighter with the water gun, so
exactly.
It's
bridges
very
it.
fitting.
And this one here is a little cap gun. This is a cap gun here, so you can put that in your
But
holster.
that might be dangerous
officers
during
have
the
a-
fire season, because it could let a spark go.
It could make a spark. Yeah,
so be safe with
absolutely.
that one, Randy, please.
Yes. We also have a calendar. Since you love the police so much, we've got Sheriff Klaus and his command staff on a magnet calendar that you can hang up in your office.
No, it could go on the side of the truck. It's magnetic.
That could,
Yes.
because then they could put it on there and see when their next 47 days off on their schedule.
It can give me a target to get my rifle or my water gun sighted in.
Yes, yeah. And we also got you a police car.
And you guys are so loving.
Police car. And for your soft drinks, we got you a little cup. And then we got you a Sheriff David M. Klaus Lanyard.
Oh,
I figured
perfect.
you mentioned earlier that he was your hero, so we thought we'd get you a David Klaus. And the other parts here, we have a ball that you can play with, and a bracelet. So I just wanted to.
I feel like I didn't come prepared enough.
Well, that's not abnormal. That's not abnormal. We're always.
But as our guest, Randy, you can have the last shot at law enforcement.
I'll be nice, right? I'll be nice. You know, Brad, sometimes we get labeled as a second responder. You know, sometimes we have a hard time getting into the scenes. When there's a structure fire or something, we need to start hooking into a hydrant and gain access down a road. Know why it's kind of delayed in some of those situations? Because police blocks the way, because they're trying to make it safe for us, but they block our access and we can't get our hose lines put into place appropriately sometimes.
That is true, but along that same line, and this impacts your office as well, is not only are they're the second responders and they bring all their life-saving tools, they're also the evidence eradication team. So on vehicular crimes, they come in and just completely eliminate all of the evidence that you need to properly prosecute a criminal. But
Randy, we'll have to have you back to continue this give and take.
Absolutely.
This give and take, and to bring your own toys to share with law enforcement. And I hope that you will join us next month for the next episode of Shooting Straight with Brad and David.